I am going to declare a quorum and call the City of Groton Committee of the Whole for Monday, March 26, 2018 to order. I am going to move a couple of things. Actually, this is the first one up.
Would you like a roll call?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's do this.
Let's get right to it.
Present is Mayor Keith Hedrick, Councilors Jill Rusk, Jamal Beckford, Stephen Sheffield, Weatherbeard Depot, Rashad Carter, Finance Director Ron Newhouse, Clerk Deborah Patrick, excused as Deputy Mayor Lawrence Garish.
Thank you. You're right. We probably should have followed the agenda. I'm just so excited about the agenda. So the first item that we're going to talk about is number 679, which is Economic Development Commission FY19 budget. So if we could, we have members of the Economic Development Commission here. If you guys would like to come up, we'll bring chairs up and we'll end up having to share a microphone. Deb, when I ask them to speak, do I need name and address or just name and what they, how do you want to do this?
As long as I know Cheryl.
This is a stretch.
Well, you know what? For the first time, we'll have everyone. Did we? So
as long as they identify themselves.
Okay,
they don't
so
really need addresses because they're not.
Right, it's not citizen petitions. But, okay, so thank you all for coming out. The first item is for the FY19 budget. That is 679. Let me get to my notes.
Do you have that?
Say again?
Do you have that budget?
You guys
I
not
don't
get
think
them?
we have it.
Yeah.
You didn't get that? Okay, well,
I think we had it a couple of weeks ago.
you may have, but there's a couple, there's some high level things that I want to talk about before we get into the specific details of the budget.
There's a few copies here.
Thank you.
All right, do we, then,
I think it was on the last agenda, but then it wasn't
okay, let
discussed.
me pass these.
I think.
Mayor?
Yep, I'm gonna pass them down. Sorry, here we go.
Do you need one back?
No.
Okay.
Do you have enough for for all three of you over there?
Is it only one page?
Okay, one, it's just
Should fit on one sheet.
Just one- okay.
There's plenty of.
Okay. Barbara, how would you like to proceed?
I believe Cheryl is going to introduce herself and take us on.
Okay,
All right, so I'm Cheryl Auerbach, and at the moment acting chairman of the commission. And we sort of wanted to all do this together because I think so we don't miss what we want to say and we all feel the same about it. And I think we'll interject as we can, but I'll just start it off that we obviously just had a budget process in February, and we just came off of losing what we just had, which was a part-timer. And that was passed in the last budget, and he had 19 hours. He really did a great job for us. He implemented a lot of programs that we had been spinning our wheels on for a while. And when we lost him, I think now we really feel a loss of what that position did and what more he could have done for us. We lost a lot of momentum and the consistency, and for all of us, I think we feel the same way that we spin our wheels a lot if you can't have somebody there that we can assign our specialist jobs to. And it's retraining too. If you continue to have a part-time person, it took a little while to get him up and running, just like it takes each of us to get up and running. So that is another important factor, having a full-time person. Just being the person now that can implement these wonderful programs that got started, that we're working with the town on, the TIF, we have a tax increment financing policy. We do have 2 sections of our city, so we really need that to be marketed, promoted. And then we've also come up with a soft grant program that now that we have this $5,000 in your budget that you'll see, which we break it down 1,000. We need to market it, we need to implement it. We need somebody like that out there with our town and city people. we need our own brand identity. We were feeling like Thomas started to really project himself, so whenever he was out networking, he was giving the city a voice. We were feeling like we were getting lost. It was always the town of Groton and, you know, losing our identity. So him presenting himself and being really present, which was using his 19 hours on those time frames. So we really had to sort of pick and choose where he went. He did that for us, and I think he picked the appropriate places to go. So really, it's just really continuing that momentum. I think there was a lot more he could have done, but he could not be everywhere that he needed to be in a 19-hour position. There's a lot that I could keep saying. We've interviewed just a taste of what we started out with. We had 4 interviews, 2 on Friday and 2 today for part-timers. We did keep in mind that the kind of candidates that came were part-time candidates. If we were offering a full-time job, we would have gotten 4 completely different caliber of candidates. So that's another reason that, you know, in the future, that will change their qualifications to what we're aiming for. We felt we had 2 of the 4 that we will consider and chat about in April when we go back and talk about it. But again, we just feel we have a lot of policies, we have a lot of ideas, but we need somebody to execute. We got a great taste of it with a part-timer, but now we feel pretty strong about proceeding and really getting out the programs and moving double the efforts that we've done with a full-timer. I guess is what I can start to say. I'll interject more, but if anybody else wants to start continuing.
Hi, my name is Anne-Marie Cipher, and yes, just to echo, I think the basic points are, so we've had the opportunity to have someone part-time. This position really requires full-time, if not more than that. So I think if the city is as committed as the passionate group of commissioners are in regards to economic development, we need the infrastructure to put this group in economic development to position us for success. So what we're hoping today is that you see the value of us continuing to advance economic development in the city, and that we can partner together to do something great for the city. You know, a couple of the points that Cheryl made that I just wanted to highlight. I mean, the visibility of having Thomas in his role, even though he was part-time, I think was a great step in the right direction. But how do we continue that momentum? We can sit and create policy and guide a staff person, but really having someone on the ground every day. Every morning at 7:30, we're not coming here. We're going to, you know, our jobs, you know, across the city. And so opportunity to have someone to really carry that message. Consistency is important. I think, you know, we're concerned a little bit about constant turnover because I think there's a lot of people that cannot sustain careers on part-time work. And so we're resetting the button. And I think that, you know, if we don't get someone in full-time, we're going to be having this conversation again really, really soon. So we're hoping that that you also see the need and the value to invest. If we look around at our peers, you see that they invest a fair amount in economic development, and we're a little behind the ball in regards to that right now in the city. And so we're hoping to, you know, work to advance that piece because we feel that that's really can be a great foundational piece to continue to advance the city and our goals.
That's fine. My name is Miles Dull. I'm going to certainly echo a lot of what was already said, and then I'm going to touch on a few more things. It was a great loss when Thomas left. I've been on the committee for about a year and see a lot of things that have been being sought after for quite some time that we started to gain on. And what is this? I think at this point we're kind of stuck in neutral. And if we want to continue to go forward and meet some of the goals and timelines that have been set forth prior, it's kind of like asking every one of us to go to your job for 20 hours a week and put out 40 hours worth of week's work. It's an impossibility. Thames Street's got a lot to offer, sort of the Five Corners, but the thing is that we need somebody, as they all said, somebody to be out there and promoting what we do and what we're looking to accomplish and to talk about, the loans and special programs, and keep them involved with what's going on, whether they want to open up a bigger site, whether they want to expand, whether they know somebody that wants to move into the city. So I'm gonna keep it short and sweet, but without a support person, or without somebody to give direction to, we're not gonna make headway. And I hate to put it that way, and I'm usually kind of blunt, and I apologize if it catches you off guard, but, come once a month, I don't mind coming. I find it actually very enlightening, but we need to be able to move ahead. And at this point, we're kind of, and I used the phrase earlier, and I hope you don't mind, we have 1 foot nailed to the floor. We're just kind of going around in circles. And I think if that person was to be hired, the appropriate candidate, and brought on, I think that things would move along at a much better pace. And then, through direction from the council and everybody involved here, we could kind of spearhead what we're trying to accomplish at a better pace.
Yeah, all right, and just lastly, my name's Tom Dreher, and everyone's hit the points that we're concerned. We've been concerned about. Thames Street has been something that's that's been a priority for this city for a long time, and I think I started a business in the city about 3 years ago, and that's something that I personally have been very excited to see happen, more to happen down on Thames Street, not only for bringing more people in the city for the success of my business, but for, bringing success down at Thames Street and the rest of the businesses in the city. It's just got so much potential, and, I think everyone's just really passionate here about seeing that move forward, and that's kind of what you're hearing from all of us. So, hopefully that helps, and all of us being here shows how concerned we are for this city and for the importance we feel that economic development has. So.
Just update to council before I open it up to questions. Remember, the town council, the last council, this council, and the council before have put in several people. They hired a new planner over there. They have several people in planning, and in their economic development, they have Paige Pronk, they have Sam Eisenbeiser, and then they have some other people that are helping with economic development, and they have their hands full over in the town. And although there is some overlap into the city, because a rising tide floats all boats, the primary interest is in the town. I am behind this initiative because there are things that I think that we can continue to do with a full-time person that will further the initiatives that this commission has and that the direction that they're issuing. And there are things, obviously, with the TIF and other actions that we're going to be taking. We need someone to execute these types of things, and that's where this individual comes in. I know Tom was frustrated because he was only part-time, but that's all we had in the budget. We did lose Tom to a full-time position with the government because we could not provide benefits. He had a new family, he was starting a family, and he needed full-time with benefits, and we were unable to do that at the time. This will allow for that to happen. So I'll open it to the floor, and then later on there's some other things that I want to talk to you about. Are there any comments or questions from the council? Councilor Sheffield.
Yes, thank you, and great presentation. I'm very happy that you guys came to join us this evening. I guess my first question would be, for Ron to start. Budget-wise, would this be something that we can
This is
implement?
Hold on.
do you want to wait till later for that?
Well,
do you want to just start off with that?
nah, let's just start. We'll just jump right in. Here's the
Since we're talking
thing.
budgets.
Well, if we're going to talk, let's talk about everything. Let me throw everything out there then. So what I'm looking for you guys, from you guys tonight, is some sort of consensus. Okay? Full-time, part-time, no time. Then the other thing is, if we go full-time, which I am advocating for, I'm looking to move that position underneath Barbara in planning. Because in the past, and I'll let Ron get into the specifics on how we funded his position, the funding has not come from taxes, it has come from other funds that we have. I mean, obviously it all ends up being taxes, but it does not come from the general fund. If we go with a full-time position, as I'm recommending, that person will fall under Barbara, just like the EDC falls under, economic development falls under John Reiner in the town. And then we would need to decide where the funding comes from. Does the funding come from the tax base, or does the funding come from where we've been getting it from, and Ron will go into detail on that, or is there a mix? So with that, I'll just open it up. Ron, do you want to talk about the funding?
The way that this has been funded in the past, when it was originally set up, was a special revenue fund was set up. The money was put in to fund this budget, and it came from the Community Development and Beautification Fund, which is mainly funded by the CMEC generator rent that the city receives. It was a determination that was made when we first started to get that, to put it into this fund. So that's where the funding has been coming. So what would happen would be at the end of the year, whatever unspent money was left in the previous year's budget would stay in that fund, and then we'd do a transfer from that community development fund to make up the shortfall for the next year's budget. With the budget that's presented now at the 96,000, we can only really sustain to do this and add that economic development fund for one more year before we drain it completely, which I don't think any of us here want. So the thought was, if it was to go to this point, it's now really a time where we bring this into the general fund just like a regular department. And then if we wanted to fund a portion of it from the community development beautification fund, we could go a portion of it, portion from taxes. There are multiple ways to do it, but we feel it'd be best to bring it in to the actual general fund budget if we're going to continue to go down this road.
Councilor Russ?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat where the special revenue fund came from
That was
specifically?
Well, we have the 5 and 50 generators.
In 2012, it was set up, and there's rent that's received from the CMEC generators at $48,000 a year.
48,000?
48,000, and then this fund has been used over the years to do windows and doors at the Zaversky House, the miscellaneous donations that we do every year, up to the 5,000. We've also done the Thames River Heritage Park donations, which this year we've done the 10,000 out of that fund. So this kind of our donation / beautification and community development. And again, we've been funding this budget now for 2 or 3 years out of that.
Councilor Russ?
So really what we're looking to do is, wait, let me restart this. Thank you all, because I know you all give a lot of time and energy for this, and I'm absolutely in favor of a full-time position. I think that that's really important, and I remember when this first came around as a part-time position thinking, is that going to be enough? So I completely understand that. My question is more of a budgetary thing. Are we looking at then funding closer to like $11,000 out of this fund and then trying to move $85,000 into the budget, which is just a whole kind of different?
Well, there's a multitude of ways we could do it. It's just what revenue streams do we want to use? I don't want to completely raid the micro generator projects of the $48,000 a year. There are other funds that we could do, but if you do partial funding with some of the special accounts, special revenue accounts, and then do the majority of the funding, whatever that ends up being, out of the tax base, then that's one thing, right? I mean, we could.
For another example, 15,000 comes out of this community development beautification fund to go towards the blight officer. The blight officer's position is in the general fund, as part of the building budget, Carl's budget. So that's one of the revenue sources, the funding sources for that blight officer was determined to come out of this fund.
Okay.
So we could do something similar if this was to go into the general fund as underneath Barbara's department, that a portion of it can come.
Okay.
But just if we do that full budget amount every year, we only have a couple years before
It's
we're
gone.
back
Right.
to square one.
So,
And then we're missing.
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
No. I just don't want to drain this fund or misuse it.
Right.
I guess that's my biggest concern. I don't want to misuse this fund. If it's for community development and beautification, this is obviously community develop, or, well, it's not really.
Well, yeah,
It's
it's
economic
right.
development. I don't want to misuse the fund, so I want to make sure we're
Understand.
taking money out of the right source and that we're.
Well, I think the big decision is, do we go full-time with this individual or not? So I'm gonna ask for a consensus, because what that will then do is that will allow me to give direction to the finance director to bring this position, because he's working on the budget. You guys are gonna get budgets on Monday. So today is the last week to get the budget together, so, well, hold on. So we could, if you go to the full-time there, then we bring that underneath Barbara, so it comes under planning. And then we can determine how we want to fund it. You're right, we want to make sure we're using the correct funds. We want to make sure that we're not just raiding funds and depleting funds so that in a couple of years we run out of funds. So if it kind of makes sense to establish this as a new baseline out of the tax base, or at least the majority of it. Is that
Yeah,
close?
I mean, that would be my recommendation.
Based on
if
what
we're
you and I talked
going
about?
with this.
Okay? Councilor Carter, you had a comment?
Yeah, then the numbers, it says 85,000. That includes salary, or is that up to 85,000 or no more than 85,000? Does that include the salary and benefit
That's benefits
package?
and everything. They
So-
just kind of, I believe, just put them in.
We
I don't
Oh,
know.
so there's like no salary range? You don't know? Is it like a requirement?
We took a look at the lower end of the going rate
Mhm.
for economic development person and added our best guesstimates as to what the benefits might be. I put all that together, I did that research, so it's on me. And it was a best guess because the person could come as a single person, could come with a family. All the benefit package varies substantially depending on what you're covering with that benefit package.
So you don't know if you do offer a full-time position, is it going to be more of, based off of a salary requirement, or is it like a steps in place? Like when you hired the last guy, did he get an annual increase, or was it just?
No, it was an hourly wage
Okay.
for 19 hours limited, that was it.
Mm.
Yeah.
But he also wasn't here long enough to get it.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
I guess I'm asking because I mean, if you offer a guy that has 15 years experience, as opposed to somebody coming right out of college, the salary requirements may be a little
Right,
different. So.
and the group has discussed that, and that there would be a range, and we would
Yeah,
base
okay.
it, there would definitely be a range.
But this is like in the do not exceed type limit.
Right.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what.
It's a not to
Yeah.
exceed.
Yep.
And you're right, we don't know what candidates we're gonna get. We don't know, I mean, gosh, we could get someone they've retired, because they've invested well and they've spent their time, and then they're doing this as a
might
same
not even
career.
need benefits.
We could get somebody straight out of college. I mean, the gambit is there. My preference, although I'm not involved in the hiring process of it, is someone with energy and enthusiasm, because we need someone that in the process of doing this, they're gonna be doing a lot of work for us, they're gonna be doing a lot of research for us, and we need them to have the positive attitude about the city of Groton, just like we do. Right? They need to believe in the city as much as we believe in the city. So that's where we're going. Councilor Defoe.
Not to, to kind of add on to that. So this number, if it happens that you find the perfect candidate and then this number is not high enough, then what happens?
This is,
Then you have to pick someone else.
well, you have to pick someone else.
Yeah,
Here-
Can't even
here-
fall in line with that, so-
Well, here's the thing. When the budget is passed, when you guys approve a number, you can't line item veto.
Right.
But the departments cannot go above their department number.
I guess my question is, how conservative is this number then?
Pretty
If they're,
conservative.
but then doesn't that mean that if they do come with a family and the benefits are wildly more expensive than you planned, that we're gonna
they
have
already did.
a problem?
Yeah,
She's just in there.
we would
That's
advertise it
not
with,
conservative though.
there's always, the way it would be advertised would be a range. That range should be able to, we would figure it out so that it would cover someone who was a single or a family. And,
That would not exceed
that,
that. Yeah.
and then we would negotiate with that person after the job was offered, and they could either reject it or accept it.
Yeah.
But it would, the range would be advertised so that nobody's applying for the job expecting $120,000.
Right.
That would be, it would be put out there as what they were going to see, depending on, their experience and their circumstances.
Right. Anne Marie?
You've kind of hit on what we struggled a little bit with because, of course, I think we approached it conservatively as a strategy to come to get your support. I mean, if there's room to expand that salary to help maybe go after someone that has more experience, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for everyone, but that was part of our conversation. I mean, that would be ideal from my perspective. I think the energy is great, but I also think we then lose 6 months getting someone on board, understanding the context of the environment
Right.
for which they're gonna be working in. So I think we've been advised to tiptoe rather than run, but if there is energy from this group, I would definitely say, we respond to that, because we know that
Because of
to be
progress.
competitive, because we know out in the market, we are gonna attract either someone at the beginning of their career, or, potentially at the end. And so, all of those factors played in. I'd love to find someone that would commit 15, 20 years to the city. Because I think, but are we ready to make that investment? I guess we were a little hesitant to come out of the gate in that, but I'm kind of hearing it loud from all of you counselors. So I guess I just wanted to say that we appreciate that you understand, from a market standpoint, and if there's any flexibility in that, I look to my colleagues, but I mean, we would love to explore if it was a possibility. We were just trying to fit within the scope of what we thought the reality was of the city budget. But I think that's part of why we're in the situation we're in now, because we didn't come forward, and I say the we, even though I was not part of the commission at the time, but, we started out with a part-time person, even though everyone around the table knew a full-time person was what was gonna be necessary, but I think there was apprehension in, that type of new initiative, so.
Well, it was, this is our resume or job description is impressive, and we were thinking, how's a part-timer going to be able to fulfill this, but Thomas did a great job. I mean, we're able to see that he got a good flavor of it. So, and I think the 4 people that we interviewed, it's exactly that. 2 were beginners, and 2 are at the end of their career. So that's who we got already. So that's interesting.
Councilor Depot?
I think this is my last question. So I know, and I think, we all can kind of see from where we sit why this would be a big benefit to the city. Can you name a few specific things that the previous employee did that showed the worth of this position?
Right. Yeah, actually, yeah. So I actually said, so I'm the liaison to the Economic Development Commission. And like everybody said, Thomas, he kind of went above and beyond the 19 hours allotted to him. So some of the things were, he was updating the webpage, getting press releases about new businesses in the city, helping to get us all together so that we can patronize new businesses in the city, right? So that they meet the Economic Development Committee. He put together swag bags for businesses. And when they had anniversaries, like the Hummus House had an anniversary, we went and some of the members, we went and grabbed lunch, you know. He came up with, what was it, a fundamentals of economic development workshop, where we talked about the makeups of the, you know, what's kind of making the city of Groton unique, what our demographics were, opportunities for business, because as you know, EB is hiring, and we want to make sure that we capture as many dollars, you know, between people coming into the city, going to work, and leaving. And how do we set ourselves up for success? We got to start planning now. He interfaced with a lot of different cities and their economic development directors, talking about bids. In one in particular, he gave me the Manchester bid that they did probably 20 years ago. And it was, you know, it's a city a little bit bigger than ours, but, you know, it had a blueprint of how do we get there? How do we get to a place where people want to stay in the city after work instead of just hitting the road? I think the bottom line is, if he had more than 19 hours, I think he would have stayed. And he did a tremendous amount of work. And we've really got to try and position the Economic Development Commission for success. And if we don't do that, if we don't give them resources, whether that be you know, a person that's working on their behalf or on the city's behalf, really, then they're just not going to get anywhere, and we're missing a huge opportunity. So those are just a few of the things that Thomas did. I don't think I really captured all of it, but he did a tremendous job while he was on.
Increased our website presence.
Right.
Again, that soft grant was a lot of his work. And he must manage to do that.
And like you said, he was the face of the city, right? So when he's interfacing with whether it be business owners, whether it be other municipalities, he's the face of the city. So, or he was. So we need that.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, with that, so all I'm looking for is a consensus, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to get a consensus on bringing this individual on. Well, consensus on acceptance of the budget. That's not true. Hold on. Consensus on, because you'll get a chance to look at the budget again. So let me break this out. Consensus on bringing on a full-time person to support the Economic Development Commission and putting that person underneath Barbara, underneath the planner. So you're good?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you and I know where to go with this. Any other questions or comments? Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for your tenacity. Thank you, Barbara.
I have one parting comment, and that is, if you invest in a full-time person, as expensive as that investment is, if they can solidify the business climate and build on the TIF and some of the other initiatives, and 3 new businesses open up, you've already paid for that person in your additional tax revenue. So there you go.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item we're going to cover is 689, the USI Insurance Services LLC Risk Management Service Proposal. Chris, if you could come up and grab the microphone and then sit next to Ron. Did you guys get information on this? Okay, good.
Me too.
All right, Ron, would you like to introduce this introduce this topic and introduce Chris?
Sure. This is Chris Wardrop from USI Consulting. I've been our intern broker now for going on 9 years. Before I got here. And I'm going to let Chris kind of walk you through some of the programs from when we first started to where we're at now and what we're doing. He's very instrumental in our day-to-day, even not even so much just insurance stuff, it's contracts that we have and just everything that we do. So
Thank you very much, councilors, for letting me be here. I sat and conversed with a number of our municipal clients and their leadership, and find it very, very important, number one, because in a lot of ways, we do what you do. We serve the public trust. We are subject to FOI, as some people say, and we take our job very seriously. My name is Chris Wardrop. I'm one of the leaders in our public entity segment for USI Insurance Services, and we're a national insurance brokerage. But I grew up in Vernon, Connecticut. I live in Ellington, Connecticut, and I have quite a few municipal clients that are right down in the southeastern Connecticut. I really enjoy working down here. I could name drop Norwich and Lisbon and Jewett City and Stonington and others. What we do is we have a public sector practice right here in Connecticut with about 60 plus municipal clients. Those are mostly cities, towns, school districts, public utilities, transit authorities, and municipalities and public entities that in some ways are very similar to the city and Groton utility, but also in some ways you guys are different because there is only one city of Groton, right? So we need to keep that in play. I work with a little over half of our municipal clients, and we work very, very diligently to help our municipal clients protect people. This is employees, residents, taxpayers. We have some other school districts. Obviously, you don't have a school district here, but students. We try to help protect property and other types of infrastructure against the risks that we face. We also then, and some people would put this as number one, we help try to protect your budget. And it's not just simply a focus on reducing premiums and restructuring things, but it's also looking at what we call cost of risk. So we look at trying to reduce workplace injury prevention. We help to employ techniques to manage claims more effectively so that the injured employees can get back to work more quickly and that they're happier. Because ultimately that ends up with a lower ultimate cost, and that can be helpful. So we're very fortunate to be hired by Groton. This goes back to 2009, and at that point in time, we conducted a very, very comprehensive assessment of the existing programs. I personally, within that first year, actually toured and visited every single municipal location that was owned by the city of Groton, personally, because that is the only way to truly know what you have. We were able to reduce costs by restructuring from a commission-based platform. And I understand at least one person here works in the insurance agency and brokerage side, but we're on a fee-only platform, okay? And a fee-only platform is in some ways unique. In the municipal sector, not as much so, but the whole idea is to help the city, help you know that we are in fact only being paid by the city, okay? And that becomes important here. Our fee in the period of our engagement has actually come down. After the first 3 years, I approached our leadership team and said that there are some efficiencies that we have, that we acknowledge as we've gotten to know the city of Groton Utilities. We can do some things more efficiently. So we actually have reduced our fee from $75,000 annually to $67,500. We have done that for some other municipalities in Connecticut. And the whole idea is we want to help you be part of the solution, not be a part of the problem with our budgets and revenue. We feel that working with a lot of municipalities, for instance, you come to us with an issue related to creating a solar array, and you wish to have a power purchase agreement with a third party. This won't be the first time we've ever looked at that. You have a water taxi situation. We may have had something similar to that, okay? If we're dealing with perhaps a possible breach of information, and it deals with cyber issues, we have dealt with that. In fact, I speak at a number of municipal associations on managing public sector cyber risk. So there are literally dozens of different topics that we will work with. So we've done that, but in our first year, we saved over $100,000 for the city of Groton from your bottom line by restructuring there were some coverage gaps that we were able to eliminate. We were able to greatly improve some services that you're getting. And it's interesting with Groton is that you have risk management services that are coming from some consistently from a safety consultant, which you know is largely geared towards the unique exposures that Groton Utilities has. But there's also services from the carrier, and then there's services from the other side. We are not a traditional insurance brokerage. We have a no-cost risk management platform that has been used more and more. Linda, your HR director, is somebody who has taken a real interest in this. I know your mayor has had a background in establishing standard operating procedures in a number of areas, and we're looking to harness that expertise as well. So that's been helpful too. So that's been some of the things we've done. Every year, we will look at the rates that are being charged by a carrier. Okay? You happen to have a combination of carriers that we have recommended, one of which is called Current. And I think many of you know that Current is a connected interlocal risk management agency. Okay? So they're different than stock commercial insurance companies. They have some stability with their rates. They are more willing to live with certain rate and premium levels, even when you have some spikes in loss history. So you tend to have a little bit more of like an aircraft carrier approach. You don't have the spike with the wave coming up and down. It's a little bit more gradual, and that's a little bit better for municipal budgets. Because there was 1 year with workers' comp where the incurred dollars on claims were over $1 million. Okay, the loss ratio, if you're in the insurance business, the loss ratio in that year exceeded kind of a break-even point by probably about 100%. Okay, yeah, we were able to negotiate some smaller increases that we were having some larger carriers. So, we deal with a lot of contract reviews. We deal with issues that relate to cyber. The water facility upgrade project is one of the largest in terms of dollars that the city and Groton Utilities has had. That is very, very important, and we have taken that really seriously. Ron set up a meeting, we met over there, we talked about the scope of the project. We've been able to establish some very, very unique builder's risk insurance programs for them that is now in place. So we have that going. And more importantly, we work with a lot of municipalities with large construction projects. And it's really important to know that if you actually do have a large claim in that area, we've handled some large claims in that area. Personally, and I'm the front person, I'm fully accountable through account, backed up by a team of half a dozen people who only work with Connecticut municipalities, okay? But I am accountable. I've dealt with $3+ million property claims. Teachers Memorial Middle School in Norwich, Connecticut in 2002, I believe, had a $2.4 million fire. I was the person who was there 14 times in the first 3 months. Okay. You have had some very large claims. You have your digester plant. You've had transformers. We've had some workplace injuries. We want people to go home at night safe. So that's actually more important than the infrastructure. So it's all very important. So there are a lot of areas that we have focused on a week-to-week basis. And Ron knows that one of the hallmarks that we believe in is to really be on call. And that means that we have our cell phone numbers available. And if there was a need to reach us, and I could probably joke and say that Ron or the mayor, or it could be Linda, it could be Mary Hill in recreation, it could be Ron Day in utilities, they may be ready to have a meeting here and say, there's something we need to make sure we're clear in our mind, whether it's a deductible, whether it's about a program, whether it's you're trying to afford to have an economic development person, and then you say, well, what about regionalization? What about the Southeast Connecticut Council of Governments, or it's, something like that, okay? That's yet another area where our job is to help be accessible, be ready on the fly, be educated, be technical in our knowledge, and be able to help you guys answer questions like, what should we be thinking about? What would be the lowest cost option, built with quality, but thinking short-term and long-term. I plan on being in this business at least another 10 to 15 more years. And I want to make sure that the advice that we're providing is really bulletproof. is doing the right job for our clients, including the city, and just to make sure that we're doing so in a way that we can all be proud of. And so it's a lot. I wanted me to go about 10 minutes or so and make sure that we have time for questions and answers. And I'm sure you can have a myriad number of questions and answers. But I do want to thank you for the partnership over the years. I was raised a certain way to make sure that the people I work with get the best, do it ethically, work really, really hard for our clients, and continue to learn, continue to try to be better and better each and every year. So last thing I'll say is we have an educational series that we've done for our public entity clients. Ironically, so we patched out with the new soundtrack because there were some municipalities that within the first 30 days were beginning to ask themselves, if we were in this situation, would we have actually had insurance coverage for the types of things that happened? And it was so raw. I was having a hard time actually thinking of putting something together. But it ended up as a 2 times a year on average series from 2013 until now that deals with cyber and contract risk and understanding the Freedom of Information Act. And as I mentioned to Ron last Friday, on May 2nd, we're having our next one at Northwest Park in Windsor, Connecticut, and it's on how to understand and safeguard against claims where students and younger people are injured in playground and park sites. Okay, that's kind of interesting. We're at Washington Park, right? Think about those types of things. That's May 2nd. This fall, we'll have another one on what we call Managing Public Sector Cyber Risk. And it's not just on insurance coverage. I'll be inviting a person who's an attorney from Chevy Goodwin, and they know data breach laws very, very well. That's a missing component in these discussions, and then we'll have the technology person at the table as well. So there's an educational component to helping manage risk, and we want our clients to know that. And this is something that comes with being partners with you guys. Something like that. So it kind of tells a little bit of the story. I probably missed a lot of things around other than me saying or somebody else. But any questions that I can help with?
Thank you, Chris. A couple of things that quickly come to my mind where Chris has worked with us. One, you mentioned the PAF with Hartford Steamboiler. He was very active with that up front to make sure that we have the coverage and that we're doing the right thing and that we provided them the right thing. Another one that is near and dear is the workman's comp with Karma and helping us develop us some initiatives so that we can try to reduce our Karma costs and our Karma claims. And he also attends our safety committee meetings. He comes to those meetings to provide additional information and a risk assessment point of view to that. And lastly, the water treatment plant. He was there and got involved with when we were first starting with that. So those are things that Chris has definitely helped us with. So any questions or comments to Chris?
Besides, when things go awry, are we reaching out to Chris for recommendations on best practices within the city for these various?
Ron, do you want to answer that? Or Chris, who wants to answer?
I'm on the phone with Chris pretty frequently. The fact that I know his cell phone number by heart, and I can tell you right now, it kind of tells you how often we reach out. A lot of times it's contracts that we enter to make sure that the insurance language is correct. Certificates of coverage for when we're doing certain things and we need to get those certificates. Just there's a whole array of things that it's not always the bad times, it's the proactive times as well, trying to get ahead when we're setting a tent up down at Eastern Point Beach and what is our coverage, what is our risk, how are we good? It's just those are the type of things that just that safeguard and to call and make sure. So yeah, it's not we don't talk to Chris just once a year when our renewal's up. It's year round.
Right. I guess my question. So, like, Ron, I know you're talking to him, but I mean, like, our director heads, are we? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. If we have if there are any risk issues, if there's questions regarding risk or insurance or anything else, everybody goes to Ron first.
Okay.
So Ron is the point person in the city and the municipality and the utility. And then Ron will reach out to Chris to ask the right question or to get the guidance on where we need to go. Ron?
I'll just make a comment. When I started, Chris reached out to me and actually he came, I think he visited 2 or 3 times, met with me and my team, and actually taught me all the insurance coverage and all the different risks that we had related to the utility. Because we have cyber risk as it relates to customer information and customer service. We have, so we went through and all my team got together and asked all their questions, and I learned a lot. So he did that, reach out to me to teach me what was there. Since then, I see him at the safety meetings and all that, but pretty much Ron's the contact when we run with Ron.
Okay.
You have a good, if I could just compliment and thank you for that input. That's a very good question. Like, what do you do when times are bad? Or what do you do when times are good? Because a lot of times when times are good, people tend to go autopilot or they shift to areas of importance or urgency, that kind of thing. 2 things came to mind. One of the areas was KPIs, key performance indicators. One of the things that some of our other clients are starting to take a look at that have a measurable impact on reducing claim dollars, which then protects the budget, is something called lag time with workers' compensation. And really, it's a kind of a simple concept. It's the time that elapses from a workplace injury to the time it actually gets reported to the insurance carrier. And in many cases, lag time is greater than, say, 2 to 3 days. It can be a week on average, because perhaps those department heads aren't fully aware of what to do. They may think that they have to have 100% of all the information collected on an injury instead of having maybe 75 and get it in to allow the insurance company to get going. But what we find is that when lag time goes on average over, say, 7 to 10 business days, then that can lead to a measurable increase in the cost per claim. So even in good times, what we wanted to do is we wanted to take a look at that. But the other part tied into department heads was really incident review processes. Some people call it accident investigation, but however you want to call it, the whole idea was when an incident takes place, whether it's the digester, has a 12-inch shift of the lid causing major issues, or it could be that there's a sudden failure of the transformer, or it could be that somebody was injured because of lifting a manhole. Okay, in situations like that, it's what was that root cause? Can we really go back? Can we go back and keep asking ourselves, why did that happen? Why else did that happen? If we could take the clock and go back 5 minutes before, was there anything that could have been done differently within reason? And I say within reason because law enforcement, I actually grew up in Vernon, literally 1 house away from Tom Dower. Tom Dower. So I couldn't believe it for some son here. Like, wait a minute, did we both get lost or something? No, very much something. But the whole idea, though, was to go back and say 5 minutes earlier, was there something else that could have been done? Law enforcement and variables related to basically arrest and control activities that are very different in some ways. It's very difficult sometimes to avoid some of those types of injuries. But incident review, accident investigation, good times or bad times is something that's very important, and we're working very hard. In fact, it's kind of more on leadership to drive some of those internal practices.
Right.
I wanted to point this out because those 2 items are not going away. We're going to have to continue as we replace leaders, as we have other people coming in, we're going to want to help, like Ron said, we want to come in and help educate them and answer their questions and let them explain.
Can I ask you a question? Okay, other questions? Councilor Depot?
Do you know an estimate of what our overall total insurance premiums are currently, like the current?
We have to total them up, because what we have is we have some premium. We have a Kerma Lab, workers' comp policy, we have some ancillary policies, and we have some policies for utilities. Often, this is off the top of my head, we're probably in the $1.3 to $1.4 million range. I can get a detailed listing if that is needed.
That's good enough. I was
Okay.
just curious. And then my other question, just for clarification on the contract, number 11 talks about compensation. It talks about like 1 to 1.5%. I'm guessing that's profit sharing, probably.
Oh, yeah. Glad that you mentioned that. Glad you mentioned that because we've worked to try to split that out where it's desired. The whole USI nationally.
Can I ask you to hold for a second? Can you point out what you're
On
talking
number
about?
11 on the
page
contract,
7.
Thank you.
the second paragraph talks about annually receiving various, from various insurers, a small amount of compensation.
Right. Yeah, and thank you for bringing this up. USI nationally we are 100% transparent with our compensation practices. So when it comes to a fee-only arrangement, everything that we see in there, we want to be transparent and say that we have relationships with certain carriers. These are certain carriers that you've heard of before, whether it's travel or insurance company, where we may have a contingent commission arrangement with them, something that says that based upon the aggregate premium volume with USI, based on the profitability of the business, perhaps the aggregate loss ratios, at the end of the year, they may return back to us on average that 1 to 1.5% of the premium. Right? For our clients, if they feel that, number one, they want to guarantee that there is literally not a penny that comes from these arrangements, and I'm not even aware of what the arrangements are in many cases, we can strike that language out. That's number one. Number two, though, is we have no such arrangements with PERMA. Okay, PERMA acting as a municipal insurance agent, it's a local risk management agency. There's nothing of that sort. So that's something. So if that is something that you would like to talk about, we can certainly do that. I'm not privy to any of those amounts. I don't know whether they're paid. I honestly don't even know insight to this stuff.
I lied, I have more
Go ahead.
questions. And just a comment too.
There is no
that
limit.
I'm the insurance person, and that's very standard. I just thought I would clarify it.
Good. Good. No, I'm psyched actually.
What was my other question? I had another question. How often do you shop or market the accounts? I know that we've had on the different policies, we've had different, loss ratios, and I know you said there was a 100% loss ratio for one of the years, but I presume, I know usually you look at like a 5-year loss ratio when you're marketing an account. So how often do you guys look and actually get quotes from other carriers?
What we do, our goal is to obtain formal quotes from alternate insurance carriers no worse than about every 3 years. Okay? The reason we say 3 years is that if you do it more frequently, with the fact that there are only, right at the moment, 3 carriers that write municipal workers' comp that includes law enforcement and volunteer firefighter and paid firefighter, okay? And that's PERMA, Travelers, and a program called the Trident program, okay? Very, very few carriers out there, okay? When it comes to public utilities, where there's electric distribution, we generally distribute, there's also a small group of carriers. When we reconfigured the coverage, we were able to actually get PERMA to take on property insurance coverage in the hundreds of millions of dollars of values for a shoreline with no wind deductible and a property deductible that was far lower than the peer group, which was incredibly unique. To this day, and this has been a number of years now, that was something that we were really proud of. We're like, wow. I mean, imagine having a 1 to 2% wind deductible per loss over $250 million property loss. So what we do every year, and it's very important, we have a pre-renewal strategy meeting in the springtime of every single year. At that point in time, we go over the state of the insurance markets. We will sometimes soft market the insurance, meaning what we'll do is we will develop a loss summary a summary of your exposures. We will have conversations with your insurance carriers and talk with them and say, what do you think this year? You have an underwriting file, you know, underwriting files, I'm sure, right? That might be 1 or 2 years old, and say, hey, what do you think? And many times they'll come back, like Travelers has said, we have problems with shoreline property. It's an issue. We can't price this less than, if we can price it, there's a wind deductible, and you've got a 15-cent rate per $100 property value. If we've got a 6-cent rate for property values with no wind deductible with PERMA, it's an incredible win every single year. So we'll do that.
Is that our rate, 6 cents?
I think
Oh,
it's,
that's
what do you
very,
think about that?
I think that's very low.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
Okay.
incredible.
That's all my questions, I promise.
Good.
But I actually want to finish off, and I appreciate that question. That was probably one of they're all important questions. We are, in fact, formally marketing insurance right now. Okay? Part of it is there were some losses within the past 3 to 4 years, and the carriers, they're taking a look. You know, one of the macro trends, meaning macro trends can be aging in the workforce, they can be regionalization of services and, you know, things like that. But another one gets into the natural catastrophes that have happened around the country with Irma and Harvey, wildfires, landslides, influenza and stuff like that. Joking, really. But seriously though, it's the carriers are paying a little bit more for reinsurance in a number of areas. It is something we're taking a look at, and with some of the indications that we are seeing, we felt that it was the time to do this, to validate that we get the best formula for the city and for Groton Utilities. So we are doing that right now. We're early in the process, obviously. It's a July 1st renewal, but we're working pretty hard. Ron is, there's information from a variety of people that are moving, so that is in fact the goal.
Any other questions or comments for Chris? Councilor Sheffield.
Okay, so I guess thank you for the deduction in the fee, I guess from 75,000 to 67,500. Is that due to our improved risk management, or?
The $67,500, that was something that was decided primarily by me in 2012. What happened there is we took a look at the services that we were providing. At that point, 3 years into the relationship, we felt that we knew more about the city and Groton Utilities. There's a level of efficiency involved there. We felt that at that fee range, it allowed us to be able to provide quality in terms of response time, technical knowledge, access to all the carriers. It is, I will tell you, and the question from Councilor Depot was a good one in terms of aggregate premium. We do take a look at aggregate premium, and you'll notice that our compensation as a percentage of premium is probably somewhere around 5% or so, a little less. The average commission-based programs out there are in the 10 to 15% range. And we would not go commission-based as was done prior to us getting involved. We just think that that's too much. So we've looked at the possibility, like what happened with Teachers Memorial Middle School in Norwich, that if you have significant claims, we may have to be on site. We will have to track claims. So a little unique. We have an automatic expansion service that can hit us, but over the span of 2 to 3 years, we tend to see a smoothing out factor. But we felt that if we want to have a two-way partnership, we should be a part of that. I hate to say part of the solution, but we felt that being lean and maintaining 60-plus municipalities, we have the ability to stay lean while still being really up on some of the trends and be able to get answers that some people have taken 2 hours to do research, and we can do research in 15 minutes because we've dealt with similar situations. So that's ultimately how we arrived at that number. and felt, we still feel comfortable with that.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion to move the, you do want to move it to April 2nd, right? What do you,
But it's a contract year, is a July 1 contract year, and we kind of looked at the tomato last month was, a lot was on it, so we kind of held off training this month, so.
all right, then I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of April 2nd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, the next one is let's do 688, which is the contract for lawn and ground maintenance and that way. That's the only one you have on, right? And so let's do that, so we can get you out of here.
That's good, this is a light month.
I know, right?
Within budget's coming.
Yeah.
So, watershed, some of the substations, have lawns that actually is contracted out for lawn cutting, it's basically just mowed. We actually formally just bid it out following the, I was listening to a couple of things we put through, and we face a lot of this stuff with waive the Groton Utilities purchasing policy. And it's nice when we're gonna actually waive that. And pretty soon we're gonna actually come and, as we implement the storage account and implement some of the others, we're gonna true up the purchasing policy and try to make it so we're not waiving it quite so routinely, so that some of the standard way we move forward with, such as the state bid on vehicles and stuff like that, actually adheres to our purchasing policy and the city's purchasing policy. So we're going to trim that policy up so that we can streamline it a little bit in the future. So that's just something to come, hopefully right after the budget time happens. So this one does adhere. We actually did these services. We've had AKT services since 2008-ish, and this is the third time it is rebid. They came in the cheapest, probably because they know the lay of the land the best, and they know how to do it the best, because they've been doing it since 2008. So they came in at $67,000. These were the bids that we had. It's really simple, and that is a 2-year contract with 2 single-year renewals on the end of that. So it's 4 in total if you re-up the last 2. Questions, comments?
Any questions or comments regarding this? Councilor Russ?
Is this just summer season, like grass
Yes,
maintenance, not
that's it.
snow removal or anything
Nope,
like that?
nope,
Okay.
It's purely, they have a trailer. They unload 1 or 2 guys on mowers, and it's really small company, I believe, and I think the guy just mows all summer on the back of the little truck.
Councilor Russ?
And the reason why we do this, I guess, not in-house, why do we contract this in?
Parks and Rec, they have 3 regular guys, and then they bring in 3 part-time guys, and they're taking care of Washington Park, the beach, and sundry places, and so they don't have the time to do it.
Okay. And
That's why we have to contract out.
okay.
That answer your question?
Yes.
Councilor Depot?
I mean, how many hours does this equate to?
It wasn't bid on that. It was bid to keep the lawn mowed for X amount of acres.
So do we know about how many hours it takes to do that?
I don't think we have any idea. We didn't ask for that data. But you can see it's $70,000. And it's actually a couple of different areas. They came in basically, almost half of what the other bids were.
I don't think they have that bid sheet.
Oh,
We
no?
don't. No.
You're right, they don't have the
We
bid
don't
sheet.
have that.
I'm looking at that and it's on the resolution.
Oh, okay. 67,000 was the low bid, and then the others were 95,000, 105,000, 107,000, 125,000, and 122,000.
How many properties do they do? Or how many different areas?
The watershed is very large, so they
Yeah.
start in operations and they actually go up through some of the gates and do up where the guys drive through.
Yeah.
And then all the way up into Ledger, there's a far property all the way up there.
Yeah.
And then a couple of the substations.
Yeah. So that would explain why there's no way one of our departments could do it. They would take all.
Well, it's
manpower.
actually interesting. It's not in the city.
It's in the
This,
town.
this is
No,
not
the
in the
watershed.
city.
Mhm.
I didn't even realize that, thinking about it.
But you're right, it's in the town or Basra or Ledger. Not Basra, Ledger.
Right.
Councilor Sheffield?
Okay, just waiting. When well, I guess, what's the time frame, I guess, of the season? Will they start in April through
I
October?
believe the way the contract reads is they're responsible to keep it no longer than X during the growing season.
Yeah, that
So
makes
if
sense.
it's dry.
It could be 2 days a week. It could be, or
Right.
it could be just as long as it's.
If it's really dry, they probably make out, and if it rains a lot, they probably don't make out.
Yeah. How long have they been doing this for us?
Since 2008,
Yeah, and they're half the bid, more than half than anybody else.
thereabouts.
Yeah, so we shouldn't even be having a discussion. That's just vote on.
We can ask questions.
Not just ask questions. Something is common sense.
Well,
I'm new.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about everybody.
no, well, but this provides us the opportunity to have a discussion on,
Well,
Not a
believe
pointless
it or not,
discussion.
having
It is
a
a-
discussion is good because you guys ask very different questions in the utility commission than the group that actually did the bid, in the way we're looking at it. So the discussion isn't bad, it's actually kind of enlightening. Not in a bad way.
any other questions or comments on this resolution? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of April 2nd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimous. Okay, let's look at 687. This is the
Thank you,
request
Ron.
for donation. Say again?
Thank you, Ron.
Oh, thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
687, request for donation from Arnold Groton Bank. They are asking for a donation of $1,000, which is what we authorized last year. But we can, you can authorize any amount. And this comes, which fund is this out of?
This comes out of the Community Development and Beautification Fund. This is the resolution that was, and I don't think it was in the packet, that allows the council to do donations of up to $1,000 per donation for a total of $5,000 for the fiscal year.
Okay, and how,
which we've
where are
done
we?
One so far did Children's First for the $1,000. So there's still $4,000 for the fiscal year.
Got it. So we're allowed 5,000, we've authorized 1,000, and we have room, should the council decide to authorize $1,000, or any amount thereof.
Oh.
Councilor Russ?
Did you want to go first? I'm
No,
fine.
I just wanted to, just if you remember that resolution, it has to do with the city and the interest of the city, because we've had donations that have come to you that
Joe
didn't
asked.
specifically get into how it was going
Right.
to affect the city.
Yes.
So I just
Right,
wanted-
absolutely.
He thought you were going to ask that same question. So.
I wasn't going to ask a question. I was going to state
Councilor
that
Russ?
this directly benefits the city and that it would be
Right on top of
appropriate.
you,
So thank you for reading my mind. You're really good at that.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
Is the consensus, is the council okay with $1,000?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Then I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of April 2nd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimous. 686, which is the increase to retirees' pensions. The retirement board gets together and they, actually, we look to the actuarial to determine, there's a formula, right?
Yep.
What you have here. The COLA is 25% of the annual change in the CPI. And that amount comes to 204,842, but what we would contribute is $27,761.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah.
Ronnie, could you better explain this? Because I didn't do a very good job.
Cost of living, right?
So the way that the formula is driven, this came, I'm not sure what year the resolution first was made for COLA increases for retirees. It may have been around 2009, but I don't remember offhand, to be honest with you. Was it before that? So it was, decision was made from the retirement board as a recommendation to do COLA increases. The way that the formula was derived at that point in time was to take the average CPIW for the year and compare it to the average from the previous year to come up with the change. So the change for the current year was 4.97 in the average CPIW, or just over 2%. And then the way the calculation says you take a quarter of that change, which comes up to the 0.53%. So the proposed COLA increase for retirees would be just over a 0.5% increase for retirees prior to 2015. So somebody who just retired wouldn't get a COLA increase this first year. So that's kind of how the formula is derived, and that's just from when this started. And I'm not sure how it was derived, to be honest with you. And then, so what we do is every year is we have the actuary come up with what is the cost of doing the COLA increase across the board. So the cost to do it from the actuary for the liability is the $204,842. That is on the sheet that was handed out. So that's the total actuarial cost of what this COLA increase is going to be. What we contribute each year is our actual determined contribution to ADC. So per year, that effect is at $27,761. So long term, it's going to be the 204,
Gotcha.
but it's just the 27 current year. In our evaluation, there is actually a piece for COLA built into the total formula, and I believe it's here. I want to say it's at 2%, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
So
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, a little bit. So that 0.5% change is, well, in addition to whatever the 2% you said it was baselined at. Is that correct?
So it's kind of a confusing formula to walk through. So you take the average CPI for the total year and then the change of it. So then I'll kind of actually walk you through the numbers if it helps. The average CPIW in 2016 was 234.076. The 2017 average CPIW is 239.051. So that increase in the average was 4.97, which was a 2.13% increase. So if you were to just look at the change in the average, it's the 2.13. But the formula that is used for the COLA is to then take 25% of the average change. So it's 25% of the 2.13 gets you to the 0.5.
That makes sense.
All right. Now we're getting there.
Math.
So there's a couple different steps to get.
Gotcha.
And then in 2015 there was actually a negative CPI average change, and it's as soon as that happens, it just kind of stops and it doesn't go forward. But when it was a positive change, it goes to the retirement board, and then they've agreed to it, referred it on to the council for.
Okay.
Any other questions on this? If not, Councilor Sheffield.
Yes, thank you. So will that reduce our bottom line for the budget by $27,761 with this increase? Or would that?
It's not going to affect the budget amount. I mean, this ADC is what the effect is, but it's already built they have, and when they do the actual evaluation for us to come up with that ADC, they always factor in because they don't know what that CPIW is gonna be. So on years where it's a negative, we put in a little bit more, and the next year there's in theory
So to
reduction.
balance off.
So
Okay.
if for current year budget, it's not gonna affect long term, it will. Because that being where pension payments going out, but current year what's being budgeted, it's not gonna be affected by that.
Right. That answers your question. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of April 2nd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. I'm not sure, nothing else. Lastly, there is 685. Which is city and town highway analysis. The town council will discuss this during their committee of the whole tomorrow. We're discussing it today. The city and town are getting together to issue an RFP for basically a review of how we do roads and highways, and then to look at best practices and to see how we're doing it, see if there's a better way of doing it, pretty much in a nutshell. And the cost is, the proposed fee is $64,800, but what we've decided we're going to do is just for to be conservative, we're going to pay $35,000 a piece. That way you got $70,000 in case there's any overruns. But they will pay half and we will pay half of this RFP. What's driving the performance of the RFP is, some of you may remember that during the arbitration, at the end of the arbitration, this was strongly recommended by Anna Berry, who is a representative from the Department of Transportation, that the city and town have a consultant come in and conduct this analysis. Councilor Sheffield.
Okay, and this $35,000 will be paid from
Let's see.
We
The general fund
actually, in
contingency.
last year's budget, we had
Right.
encumbered some funds. I don't remember the exact amount because we knew this was in the works and this was gonna be coming down. I can get the exact amounts. I just don't recall how much we had.
Do you remember where though? This was
I
out
thought-
of,
I think
this
it
was
says-
out of roads and highways.
Nope, it won't come out of roads and highways because, this is truly.
Oh, that's true.
or-
From the
Outside.
arbitration.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, outside the scope.
It was actually, encumbered out of the mayor's contractual.
That's right.
Service.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? As a matter of fact, there's a this is the town council's agenda for tomorrow. And we're on the agenda for 3 items. One's Colonel Ledger School site. I have sent a letter, and John Burt and I have toured the building and the property together. And I'm going to recommend, I have already recommended that the town take the Colonel Ledger School property back. And the road reconstruction bond, this is it was a 5-year bond. There were monies that were left over, so the council extended the bond. So we will present what our projects were that we completed last year and what our projects are for this year. And then lastly, town city highway analysis, which is what we just discussed. And that'll be tomorrow night, 6:30. Any other questions or comments on this?
Who's our liaison for the city on this?
We have 3 liaisons. We do not have a meeting yet. I've sent emails and phone calls, and the one date has already passed. That was going to be on the 22nd. The next one is in April. I forget, but it's got to be before the 14th.
Yeah, I think it was like the
So-
12th or so.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we have Councilor Beckford, Councilor Depot, and Deputy Mayor Garish are on the committee.
Sorry, it was April 5th. Thursday,
Thank you.
April 5th.
Their 3 councilors are Counselor Spiri, Counselor Schmidt, and Counselor Atwater. So, that's that. Any other discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to move this. Did we already do it? I didn't do that for this one. I might take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of April 2nd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries unanimously. There is no executive session, so I will take a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.